Welcome to the Raven Knoll Show. I'm your host, Raven C. Knoll, known as the Soul Physician. I'm a wife, mother, counselor, mindset plus life coach, and speaker, and this is episode number 20. Hey, RCN Pod Squad, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the show. We are knee deep in our Known for Influence series, and I must say, these interviews are just so good. It's been, again, a joy interviewing all of these ladies. And today's episode, I am actually chatting with the High Earning Housewife herself, Ashley Empowers. I truly enjoyed this conversation with Ashley because she's such a great communicator. And she really does put her perspective of the journey of becoming an influencer and a woman in business and a leader into perspective. And it's really a great conversation that you really want to dive into because, again, I really think that she put so much into a viewpoint for anyone to be able to connect with and kind of see themselves in. And then she's also such a good communicator that she really kind of encourages you to believe in what's possible for you as well. So Ashley Brown, known as Ashley Empowers, is a host, entrepreneur, and motherhood and lifestyle content creator based in Dallas, Texas. She is a pioneer within the relationship community, and she works daily to change the tone of the conversation about marriage and relationships around the world. Ashley has attracted an audience of over 170,000 followers and 8.5 million viewers. Her passion for creating high quality content has brought campaign partnerships with brands such as WeTV, Cheerios, Walmart, JCPenney, Herbal Essences, Sephora, TLC, and Burlington, to name a few. She has been featured on BBC News, Bravo, Good Morning Texas, and many other media platforms. She's a passionate speaker, an advocate, and a catalyst for dating with purpose, and she's dedicated to social and spiritual uplift. She also received her executive MBA and currently serves as the CEO of the High Earning Housewife, a high-level entrepreneurial program for women who are learning the tools needed to be the CEO of their home and business. Let's take a listen to the conversation. All right. So, hey, Ashley, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
So I was just so excited to be able to sit down and have this conversation with you because to me, I feel like you are one of those women who have a multi-level influential ability, if you will. And so, you have the business side of you that's very influential. You have that strong online presence. You have that womanhood, femininity, mother type of essence to you. And so there's just this way that you show up as an influencer in multiple capacities. Would you say that you do?
Well, thank you for one, but I enjoy what I do. And do I believe I've been able to have impact and influence? Yes.
Okay. And so for you kind of maneuvering through the different hats that you wear, do you feel like it comes pretty effortlessly, or do you feel like there's more effort that you have to put in one over the other?
Oh no, I definitely put in effort. I put in effort, I put in strategy, I put in prayer. So it some things come easily. And I feel like, when you're called or gifted to do something, sometimes what is easy for you may what's easy for you, it appears easier for other people, I guess I should say, but definitely there's effort for sure that's put in.
Okay. So I know like your online presence and growing online, I'm sure you've grown over the years. It's been, like you said, strategy and effort to be able to do so. And so I'm sure it didn't just happen overnight or pop up overnight. So when you started to grow online, were you mentally and emotionally prepared for that growth, whether it was small, large, or whatever those numbers were for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, just to kind of let viewers understand, so I can just paint the picture, I started my brand in 2014. So, that was 8+ years ago.
Mhm.
And when I started, I did not start specifically for influence. I did not start to build a brand. I started because I was very impacted by some of the women that I was following online. And I wanted to share my story to give other people hope.
Mm.
And with that authenticity of me doing that, and I started on YouTube, and I loved the YouTube platform when I first started. It gave me the ability to reach people from all over the world. And some of the content that I was sharing, it was just gaining traction, which then really started helping me to grow my following. And then that turned into different opportunities.
Okay. Okay. So that growth for you personally, even though it's been, 8 years now from you've been kind of putting in that work, what was that mental, emotional capacity to kind of get up every day over the years to continue to show up online and grow this platform for yourself and continue to stride forward in your goals and different things of that nature?
Yeah, well, I believe people shouldn't start anything that they're not going to be consistent at. And at
Mm.
the time, I was working a full-time job, but because I had so much vitality and so much interest and enthusiasm in what I was doing, that helped me show up consistently. Like, I genuinely love social media. I love reaching
Okay.
people from all over the world. And so it in and when I started, I didn't even have all my ducks in the row. So I remember I was watching a lot of YouTube, like,
Mhm.
just I had a few YouTubers that I just was really locked in on, that I really enjoyed their content. And at the time, my boyfriend was like, "You should really start your own channel. You're always on there. You should start it for yourself." And so I started thinking about it, but I didn't have any of the resources to do it. And I remember Christmas of that year that we were dating, he gifted me an iPad. And so I was like, "Oh, wow, like, I can start recording YouTube videos on my iPad." And so it was really bootleg. I would sit on my apartment floor, and I remember I would take down the artwork on my wall and put it behind me so I can have like a rigged backdrop. And then I would prop my iPad up on a dirty clothes basket, and I would sit on the floor, and I started to create content. And just how what's beautiful about being consistent is
Mhm.
that the Lord will I just feel like if you're faithful with the small things, the Lord will
Yeah.
provide you to keep the mission going forward. And so I remember starting on my iPad, that my boyfriend gifted, which is now my husband. We've been married, it'll be 8 years in August, but
Mhm.
use the iPad. And then I remember my mother-in-law, we ended up getting married. So I was using my iPad this whole time. I think I hired a videographer for some interview style videos. And then my mother-in-law was working at the airport, and someone left their DSLR camera, and she left it there. She let it sit there for months, and she was like, "Okay, nobody has claimed it. You guys are trying to do this YouTube social media thing. I'm going to gift it to you."
Oh, wow.
And so from there, I started using a better quality camera, and my husband and I ended up moving to a nicer apartment, and they had like all these like nice amenities and things. And I remember needing I didn't even have the appropriate laptop to edit these videos. I would
Mhm.
edit them on my iPad. And I was like, I really want a Mac, something, an Apple that has these programs where I can edit. And so in these apartments that we lived in, they had complimentary iMac computers, and we would literally sit in there for hours waiting for our videos to render and to upload. Like, for most people, they're like, "We ain't finna do all that."
Yeah.
But instead, it's like we had so much passion for what we were doing, that
Mhm.
that's what allowed me to just keep going, to show up, to get more creative with my content. So I would say
Yeah.
that's really what helped.
That's really a story of grit. Some people are not willing to kind of do that type of work or to start that small and have that much passion without having all the necessary resources to be able to start. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're willing to say, "Hey, I'm gonna put something on a dirty clothes basket and make it look good, and I'm gonna make this content work." But I think now sometimes because we see, that was probably 8 years ago, but on social media, we see people that are so much more advanced. So someone that's just starting off, they may see someone who's been in the game 8 years, and it's like, well, this is my small beginning. How can I compare to that? Like, what would you say to someone who's looking at someone who already has some skin in the game, that's kind of been in this thing, pushing it forward, and they're like, my small beginning doesn't compare to where they are?
Yeah, well, I would say one, don't compare because
Yeah.
I mean, you said it like an 8-year journey compared to your day one, it's going to look completely different. But use that person to give you hope on what your 8-year can look like, your 8th year can look like. But I would also say there are so many resources and programs and trainings that can help shorten the learning curve. And so,
Yeah.
what took me 8 years to learn, somebody by now has already packaged and put it into a course, and you can
Yeah.
learn it and be consistent. So
Mhm.
I would say don't hesitate to invest in yourself and make sure that you're not comparing your day one to someone's year 8.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So in that process of building, did you ever get discouraged? And what did that look like for you? And how did you pull yourself out of a place of disappointment or discouragement?
Yes, I of course. Yeah. So discouragement, it's just a part of the process. Like, especially when you're an entrepreneur, when you try things and you fail and some things don't work or the outcomes don't, they're not as you expected, that can breed discouragement. And in those times, what I do is I really have to just stir myself up spiritually. I have to remind myself that this is what I'm called to do. And I really do think it's important that people who are building influence, who are in any type of leadership role, that you're constantly developing yourself and you're reading. And you mentioned grit. Like, I just got done reading this book, Grit, and it tells you that a key factor in many successful people is the fact that they persevere in the face of obstacles. They
Mm,
have that gritty nature. And
yeah.
so when you understand that, when it's your turn to face an obstacle, you can either say, okay, I'm going to double down and I'm going to keep going, or I'm going to give up. Right.
Yeah.
And so I learned these lessons by hearing the stories of other successful people. And I realized, oh, okay, failing is normal. Being discouraged
Mhm.
is normal. All of these feeling inadequate is normal, but
Mhm.
you just keep going and you'll
Yeah.
see the fruit if you don't quit.
Yeah. So do you feel like that is a skill set that has to be developed, or is that something that people naturally have within them and they, or some people just don't?
Oh, no, I think it absolutely can be developed. I wouldn't say necessarily a skill set. I would say it's a muscle that
Mhm.
you have to develop, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So, like, it's a muscle that when you face a challenge, it gives you the opportunity to be stronger in that area. But anybody can grow in grit, they can grow in perseverance, they can grow in not giving up.
Yeah.
Like it, and I remember I was listening to TD Jakes one day, and he was saying how so many people in this generation, they want what their parents had that took them 25 years to build. They want it overnight. And
Mhm.
he was like, you will see what you desire if you don't quit.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is a lot of people, they have great passions and great desires, but they don't give themselves a long enough time frame to see the fruit of what they desire. And so
Mhm.
they give up easily,
Yeah.
they're on to the next thing. But the most successful people, they stick with one thing for a
Yeah.
long period of time.
Mhm, mhm. That's really good. I think that that's something currently culture-wise, because social media is so fast, it's so image driven, it's videos and different things of that nature. Sometimes people can get discouraged with my pace isn't fast enough based on what I'm seeing. Culture is just move, 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 go, go, go. But like for you personally, I know you kind of talked about some of the humble beginnings, if you will, with you building your business. But I'm sure that you have to produce curated feeds in certain senses because you're marketing or you have strategy or you're working with a brand or something of that nature. So you want to be able to, post things that are of quality. But what are some of the negative sides of influence that you're not necessarily showing, like on your feeds or on a YouTube video or something like that, that people may not be able to see?
Yes. So I would say a negative would be addiction to technology.
Mm,
And so for me personally, I have had to set boundaries around technology. It's not necessarily social media. Like, people spend hours upon hours on social media,
yeah.
but to me, it's just the technology, like feeling like you always have to like post or comment or engage. And a lot of people will tell you the way that you build your influence is
Yeah.
that if you post something, then you engage and then you go to their page. Like there's all these different strategies, which
Yeah.
I don't opt into because it takes too much of my time and attention. And I'm married, I have kids, so I
Right.
don't have time for that. And so I would say a con for sure is being addicted to technology, which
Yeah.
I'm I will admit, like I am addicted to my phone and I have to set boundaries. Like it
Mhm.
is just, and I think there's studies that show the average person picks up their phone, they touch
Yeah.
it 2,716 times a day.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
much we reach for it. And so I can notice that I'll just be in the car, my husband's driving, and I'll just pick it up and go to email, pick it up, go to like
That's real.
always checking something,
Yeah.
And so I think that you have to really guard against that and allow yourself time to decompress, set
Yeah.
boundaries. Some things that I do that help me is I don't have any notifications on my phone, so I can't see who text. I have to literally go find my text message app
Mhm.
to see
Mhm.
who texts me. I don't have any Instagram, TikTok. I don't have any notifications. If
Yeah.
I see something, and I miss a lot of stuff also,
Yeah.
like, and so when people comment, I miss a lot because
I'm the same way.
yeah, I
Mhm.
don't see them. But it really helps me to protect my soul. It helps me to protect my mind and not just constantly be
Yeah.
on.
I love that you say that because it's just real. You know what I mean? The social media age, technology, having all these different, avenues to be able to view the internet or get an email or all those different things. But what would you say is that point of someone can kind of look internally and say, I'm crossing the line with how much time I'm giving to, feeding social media feeds or intaking from social media feeds. I'm not feeding my soul enough. I'm not feeding myself personally, spiritually enough. Where's that border or that crossing point where people can kind of recognize that?
Well, I can't speak for everyone and answer that question for everyone, but for me personally, I remember getting to a point where I literally felt like my soul was being
Yeah.
affected
Mm,
because of it. Like I can't really put it into words, so I would say you can just you can gauge how you're moving and how you feel.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I'm 33 years old. And so I remember the time where there wasn't social media. And I thank God for that. Like, I am so thankful that I lived in a
Mhm.
time where we weren't dependent on social media. I remember in high school having like a little flip phone, but
Yeah.
nobody was blowing up my phone like that. Like, so I had time for hobbies and friends and real life social encounters. And so I remember how that felt. I remember
Yeah.
how that time felt. And so I compare it to some of this experience I have now. And I'm like, ooh, I don't feel that. I don't feel that connected.
Yeah.
And so a book that I read recently, it was called The Elimination of Hurry. It's by John
Mhm.
Mark Comer.
Yeah.
I mean, that blessed me so much. And it's just really about slowing down. And he gives really good practical ways to not be addicted to technology and set boundaries around that. But I will say that for me, it was just kind of like a heart check, like my internal compass was off a little bit. And it
Yeah.
was because of not necessarily social media, but because of technology, where I
Yeah.
need to have time and stillness and quiet and not feel like I need to have a podcast playing. I need
Yeah.
to be checking something, like just embrace moments of quiet.
Mhm. Do you think that for you, those moments where you feel like, hey, this is kind of taking a toll on me, does it impact your quality of work and what you produce?
Does it impact my quality? It can, or let me say it has in the past, but
Mhm.
now that I've set boundaries and I work my business and social media completely different than I used to, there's been
Mhm.
a lot of growth there. But in the past, it probably caused me to just want to like put out something for the sake of,
But now, yeah.
for the sake of staying active on these different platforms.
Mhm.
Now I move different because I have different motives and because I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah.
There's a quote that I read recently that says, you don't have to, how did it go? It was something about I'm no longer going to light myself on fire to keep other people warm. And when
Oh,
you're in a place of influence, sometimes you feel as if you have to keep showing up to
yeah.
serve other people. But what the quote is saying is, I'm no longer going to do that. I'm going to put myself first, my well being, and
Yeah.
then serve from the overflow.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great quote. So I'm a big stickler in learning lessons in failure or success. And I'm sure, over the years, as you've grown your platform and different things of that nature, there's been failures and successes like for anyone. And so I truly believe that life can always teach you something. So what life wisdom have you gained thus far from your journey, particularly as an influencer?
That's a really great question. So I've learned so much, and I've become a better person. I've become a better person on this journey. And so I would say one of the greatest lessons that I've learned is really to just lead from your heart. So
Mm,
you say influencer. I don't call myself an influencer, although I know that's what I do, but I do feel called to lead.
mhm.
And in a time where many people are changing who they are for influence,
Yeah,
I think it's so important that you stay aligned, and instead of trying to replicate and copy and paste what other people are doing, that you move from an internal perspective, if that
mhm,
makes sense. And
mhm.
so I feel like I can't fail if I'm being true to what I'm called to do.
Yeah,
And a lesson that I've learned is, reels right now are really popping
yeah.
on Instagram. And I love reels. Like, I love content creating. Like, I genuinely enjoy it.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, about a year ago, when reels first started getting some traction, what people would say is like, take the trending audio. And so I started to see so many people doing the same
Yeah,
thing over, and I fell in that trap. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is like a popular audio, let me put my own twist on it, which is okay every now and then, but I felt like I was doing too much of that. And so I had to
yeah.
stop and say, remember who you are.
Mhm.
And as you're influencing and leading, you can be as creative as you want to be. And
Yeah,
so I encourage people to not fall into the trap of doing things because it's trendy or just to have influence, but to be true to who you are, be
yeah,
creative. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. Like, and when you're leading from your heart, you're not so focused on the strategies of what
yeah.
other people are trying to recommend. You're doing what you feel led to do.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel that for you particularly, you've been able to get to a place of having the confidence to know I'm leading from the trueness of who I am? Kind of like a level of self-awareness in a sense, but how did you get there?
Oh, I really feel like just being in my 30s. Like, it just brought a different savage. Like, I
Yeah,
wish I felt this way in my 20s, but I
yeah,
really do feel like it's just came with age and time. And it's just, I really feel like it's came with age.
yeah. So you feel like identity in a sense has a lot to do with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So that kind of brings me to my last question, which I ask all my guests on this podcast series. And for you, what do you feel is the cost of relevancy and influence?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the cost is whatever you sacrifice,
Hmm.
right? So the cost, well, okay, so with everything, there's polarity. So there's a
Hmm.
cost and there's a gain. And so let's start with the gain, because I like to speak in terms of positives. So the gain to having relevancy and influence is the lives that you can impact and genuinely change, the seeds that you can plant, the young women who thought about getting an abortion, but they heard your story about not getting one and they feel empowered. Or, it's just you being able to use your story to
Yeah.
serve and impact other people. Like, there's money can't buy that. Like, the conversations that I've had, the people that I've met all over the world that have resonated with my story and have
Mhm.
gotten married, or, chose to pursue building a business from home because they heard my story,
Yeah.
that is a win and it's a gain. A cost would be time.
Yeah.
As human beings, time is our greatest asset, but to have influence and to have relevancy, you have to pour effort, time, energy, and
Yeah.
attention. And so I just feel like if you have the proper systems, the proper perspective, the proper motives, there is a way that you can manage it and
Yeah.
not feel overwhelmed or not feel like you're losing your soul in
Mhm.
your mind in the process. But it's really just boundaries and saying, when is enough? When is enough enough? Like, I remember I went on a walk and I was just thinking about this, how when you're building influence, when you're in a leadership role, when you're in business, you literally can always be doing something.
Yeah.
And so if you choose to always be doing something, that's really going to be costing you something. But if you choose to be wise with your time, to say, to set a metric for yourself of, you know what, I'm going to post twice a week and show up
Yeah.
on once on Instagram. So I don't know, like whatever your metric is, you create that to make sure that you're protecting your heart and your soul and not feeling like you're just getting sucked in to the rat
Right.
race of social media.
Right. Right. Love that. Love that. I think that was a nice cherry on the top. Thank you, Ashley.
You're so welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. This has been the Raven Knoll Show. Thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast so you're the first to know when new episodes are released. And don't forget to leave a review. If you can't wait until the next show, follow along on Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter at RavenCKnoll for more tips and to keep the conversation going. Go ahead and DM me on Instagram or take a screenshot of this podcast and share it to your IG stories. I want to know about your takeaways from the show. Don't forget to tag me and use the hashtag RCNPodSquad. Lastly, visit my website at ravenckknoll.com and join my email list to get exclusive bonuses only for my email subscribers. Thanks again for rocking and rolling with me. I'll talk to you soon.